Big Obama speech, his big public address. Joining me now, G Parthasarathy, former diplomat, former High Commissioner to Pakistan, and someone who's been helping us make sense of this visit. Samir Saran of the Observer Research Group is also with us. Appreciate both of you joining us on the program. Let's give us a sense of what this means. An address by the US President. If you remember, last time the US President was in India, he addressed the joint session of Parliament. There isn't a similar speech this time, but this is the closest he gets to perhaps directly speaking to the Indian people, apart from, of course, the joint address that he will have with the Indian Prime Minister on All India Radio.
Well, I think there's no question that as a media event, this visit far overshadows what happened in Obama 1.
Right.
Let's face it, that Obama 1 came after George Bush, and Bush produced the nuclear deal for us. I think the Americans are now seeing a much more open government to this sort of thing, that we no longer are going to hide the fact that we seek a stable balance of power in Asia. And we'll do what is necessary to achieve that, including better relations with US allies like Japan, greater patrolling of the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, and a readiness to be much more proactive in forums like ASEAN and the East Asia Summit. So all this put together has made the US sort of look afresh at us as for a balancing role. Let's not kid ourselves about anything more in Asia. It will put more squeeze on Pakistan with regard to terrorism. But we should shed any illusions that this is going to be a sort of renunciation of the US-Pakistan relationship.
I'm going to come to those.
Again, I'm saying it's a potential here. It's not happened yet. We need to see some action at our end, and the budget perhaps will offer us some glimpse of that. But again, he hopes that American growth in the next 5 years could be integrated with a resurgent India if this Prime Minister delivers half what he promises.
You know, it's interesting, therefore, that the US President, you're saying, is already looking at legacy issues. Both of you are seeing, and India has become one of the pieces. Let's be clear, before we start sort of, believing that we are the central piece of an Obama foreign policy legacy. We clearly are not. I mean, it is clearly it is clearly an evolving relationship.
But an important piece is what the ambassador mentioned. I think for the first time in the last 6 years, ever since the Americans have been trying to project this pivot to Asia as a central piece of their foreign policy, India has responded. Right. I think if you look at that agreement they've signed on the Asia Pacific, in many ways India has joined that pivot to Asia. Subtly, and certainly as only a part of that larger strategy for America. But I think from an Indian perspective, I think for the first time we have boldly synchronized our look east, act east policy with the pivot to Asia of the US. And I think that's a big departure.
Sure, that is. I just want to, for a moment, just set the stage for this morning. Around 10:30, we expect the US President to arrive at City Fort. This is in the heart of Delhi. It's an auditorium which was built, if I'm not mistaken, in the context of the Asian Games, which were held in 1982. And in and around that are several playgrounds and gardens, but the focus is the auditorium where today the US President will be delivering a speech. Our correspondent Maha Siddiqui is there because there's tight security, not surprisingly, and she's giving you a sense at the moment and telling us just what is the kind of audience that we can expect for the US President's speech. Just let's listen in to Maha Siddiqui.
Massive security outside the City Fort Auditorium this morning and long queues of people to get inside to listen to US President Barack Obama, one of the finest orators in the world. Let's speak to some of the people as to what they are expecting Barack Obama to speak about this morning. What's the level of excitement this morning as you're heading in to speak to US?
We came in pretty early. It's really cold, and I think bearing the cold for Obama, let's see what he has to speak about India. I think we're really curious to understand about his vision for India. I mean, there are a lot of deals which went through over the last few days. Let's see what is the 10-year vision for India and US relationship. So I'm waiting to hear about that. I think all of these people have stood in this cold for about 2 hours. We came in at 6:30 in the morning. So I hope it's worth it. Let's look forward to it. Thank you.
Is there anything specific that you would expect Barack Obama to touch upon this morning?
I suppose he should talk about the greatness of our democracies. America and India, I think, are natural partners in the sense that they both stand for liberty, freedom, and as I said, people's participation. So I hope he touches on the commonalities. Differences between two great powers, I suppose, can be always ironed out. It's more interesting to look at it as a people-to-people kind of exchange.
I can see that there are a lot of young people here this morning, as you can see in this queue. Are you expecting him to touch upon some of the issues specifically about young people and how there can be greater contact between the young people of both the countries?
Yeah, I think given the fact that the crowd has such a large number of youngsters, he might look into that aspect of it, and then he might realize and then look into those aspects of things and maybe then give away his speech or whatever he has to say. But then our thing, like most of us here are to celebrate the fact that we've started such a nice, like the relationship between India and America has started on such lines, right after the nuclear deal. And yeah, so on similar lines. So I think it's more about a celebration on those factors.
All right.
Yeah.
So people here curious to hear as to what US President Barack Obama has to tell them rather this morning. There are about 1,500 people who've been invited for this special lecture by Barack Obama, and as you can see in these queues outside City Fort this morning, that this group largely comprises young people and students. With camera person Ashwini Helen, this is Maha Siddiqui in Delhi for Headlines Today.
Well, as you can see, lots of young people there queuing up to listen to the US President. I think that's the focus of the kind of town hall that is being held. Rahul Kaval is joining us now from inside City Fort Auditorium. Rahul, give us a sense inside of the kind of expectations that these young people have. I heard Mahar sort of talking about those who've been queuing up since early in the morning. What are we expecting in terms of the narrative that the US President is expected to sort of deliver, and is it primarily directed at a younger India?
Morning, Rajdeep. There's a huge amount of excitement here at the City Fort Auditorium this morning. A lot of young people coming in early in the morning to listen to the President, and as you well know, there's a huge amount of affinity between Indians and Americans, and they're wanting to hear how the President sees this relationship move into the future. I've been chatting as I was coming in these long queues with the people who were gathering to listen to the President this morning. They're very, very excited about the way this visit has been so far. They think it's been a super success. They're quite impressed with our Prime Minister, although his pinstripe monogrammed suit came in for a lot of comments. Some people think he's really up there with the fashion sweepstakes. Some people saying it's a bit over the top, slightly narcissistic. They wouldn't want money to do it. But there's a lot of chat, a lot of buzz around these two towering personalities, far more than when the President came here the last time, and now people wanting to see how the American President can open America's doors for these Indian students. There have been huge problems when it comes to H-1B visas. The President's rhetoric on outsourcing, he says don't go to Bangalore, stick here in Buffalo. That's really not the kind of stuff that these young kids want to hear. They want America to open its doors, and they're looking forward to hear from the American President a short while from now.
Okay, Rahul, we're going to come back to you for plenty more. As you said, it's interesting that the demographic shift that's taking place in this country, and I think the US President, much like the Indian Prime Minister, recognizing that you need to address a younger India, you need to address audiences perhaps under the age of 30, because those are the audiences which perhaps could form the basis for a future Indo-US full-blown partnership. So that's going to be our prime focus. Before I head into the break, I also want to go to Simi Pasha, who's in our newsroom, telling us how the international newspapers are looking at the Obama visit and all that's been said in the last 24 hours. There's a general sense, Simi, that Indian newspapers and we in India have gone over the top. The international media, on the other hand, has treated it as yet another visit of the US President.
Well, not really. Of course, Obama's India visit making headlines in all newspapers here in India, but it's also hitting headlines in global newspapers, especially in China and the US. Here's a look at how the US media is reflecting this story. Obama's appearance at India's Republic Day sends out a message to China. That's what is being reported by the Wall Street Journal. They're also saying that Obama's appearance is a sign of US hope that under Modi, India will be able to tackle hurdles that it faces in terms of economic growth. That's what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. Here's a look at what else they're saying. They're saying under Modi, India can become a counterweight to China Is this the reason why Obama is so anxious to develop on the India-US relationship? That's what the Wall Street Journal says. According to the New York Post, Obama made the most of India's Republic Day. He, of course, was closely watched by all the cameras there. They're saying that Obama has used this visit to cement strong ties with India. This is, of course, something that Obama has also reiterated again and again in public statements that he's made during his visit. The New York Times also saying invite to Obama was an important diplomatic gesture, and Obama chatted with Modi. Also, there were reports about how he was chewing gum. Some people thought it was disrespectful, others saying that it's a long function, it's early morning, it's cold, it's probably all right. He has also looked at how the Chinese media has been reflecting this story. Of course, Obama's visit to India is crucial for China, considering that it's a superpower, especially in this region. China's state agency Xinhua's take says that long list of differences. Obama will face a hard job to have India on the same page. They're also saying that the time that the two leaders have shared between each other is too little to actually form some chemistry. Of course, Modi has been going out of his way to prove that Obama and he have become great friends. He, in fact, even referred to Barack Obama and using his first name, calling him Barack in that post-delegation meet. In fact, China's daily stake is that Modi's efforts to forge close ties with Modi's efforts to forge close ties with the US are being monitored closely by China. India's DNA doesn't allow it to become close partners with the US. Here they're referring to the Make in India campaign that's been launched by Prime Minister Modi. Of course, the US also looking at inviting manufacturing investments in their own country. That's how these newspapers in China and the US are reporting Obama's India visit.
Okay, thanks very much there. Simi Pasha giving us more details there on exactly how the global media, particularly China, is looking at this visit. And that's going to be part of our focus this morning, to see how this is now going to play out in the context of the regional balance of power as it is being now described. Let's take a break at this point. When we return, we'll come back with plenty more here on our special coverage, the last day of the US President's visit to this country. In about just over an hour from now, we expect him to arrive there at the city fort. So we're building up towards that, and we'll also look back at what's been 48 hours of hectic diplomacy between the two countries. Back in a moment.